To this day, I don't believe there's a single Walking Dead character that's as hated by the majority of the fan base as Lori Grimes. She's essentially the Skylar White of the Walking Dead universe, but unlike Skylar, I actually believe that Lori deserves most of the hate directed towards her. But notice that I said she deserves most of the hate, not all of the hate. That's right, I do believe that Lori gets undeserved hate, and that's precisely what I want to cover in this video essay. I'm going to examine the flaws of Lori Grimes with a fine comb to determine where the hate is justified and where it isn't. So with that said, please sit back and relax, because it's going to be a long one. I want to start this essay off by covering where Lori is unjustly hated because it's my video and I can do whatever the fuck I want. So hear me out. Lori isn't as bad as you think she is, and she certainly isn't a villain. She's actually a terrifically well-written character who embodies the sort of person that wasn't meant to survive the Walker apocalypse. And her fundamental flaw as a character is that she's a person who tries to make everyone happy while failing epically in said endeavor. She's also emotionally impulsive, selfish, and irresponsible, somewhat like a certain character people tend to love. But she's also a well-intentioned and loving wife who just so happened to suck at being a good apocalypse wife. In order to see this, we must first cover the instances where she has garnered undeserved hatred. Then and only then can we have a little fun covering her failings as a character. And what better place to start than with her post-apocalyptic romance with Shane Walsh, her presumed dead husband's best friend. Some people, for some odd reason, get mad at Lori for bunking up with Shane. And I'm going to be frank with all of you. There is nothing wrong with their initial relationship. Both Lori and Shane legitimately believed that Rick was dead. Both were consenting adults. Both knew each other well, and it was clear that both bonded through trauma, which is a very real occurrence in the real world, by the way. And the trauma in question was also the end of the world, so clearly these two were under an unbelievable amount of stress. That being said, there really is no objective or real time limit for how long a widow ought to wait before moving on or having a rebound of some sort. None whatsoever. Anyone disagreeing is simply projecting their preferences onto the lives of other people. The act of moving on doesn't actually harm the widow's late spouse precisely because said person is dead. And even if the dead spouse left a will asking their lover to wait, said lover wouldn't be obligated to follow said will because the lover's right to individual sovereignty absolutely supersedes the superficial desires of any individual, because the dead person in question doesn't own his or her living spouse to begin with. So the question remains to those who dislike Lori and Shane for their relationship. How the fuck is it wrong? You know what, I'll save you the hassle. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Now, from a survival perspective, it's also better for Carl to have a father figure than none. And this relationship clearly also helps to ensure Lori's survival as well. But she's not the only one who benefited from this. This relationship also saved Shane on a more emotional or spiritual level, as he admitted that Lori and Carl are what kept him alive in a world he seemingly implied that he didn't want to live in.
I couldn't live knowing, but I had to. I didn't keep Lori and Carl alive, man. They kept me alive.
The only reason this relationship was controversial was because Rick was, in fact, alive. But I'll delve more into that detail later. All things considered, had Rick truly been dead, this relationship would have been a net gain in well-being. And that's actually a good fucking thing. Be that as it may, Rick actually understood this and never blamed Shane or Lori for it. I mean, it certainly hurt him, but he understood it and forgave them.
You thought I was dead. The world went to shit and you thought I was dead. Right?
Can I also point out that Lori was a loyal wife? The minute she found out Rick was alive, she dropped Shane cold turkey. Why aren't some of you people commending her for that? Lori really was that ride or die gal. Anyways, now it's time to cover the big one. The sexual assault of Lori Grimes at the hands of Shane Walsh. Full disclaimer ahead, Shane is ultimately responsible for his actions and Lori is the victim here. If you don't feel bad about what happened to her, if you feel that she deserved this form of violence, then there's literally something wrong with you. Seriously folks, that isn't an opinion, it's a fucking fact. And it's one that you have to accept.
Swallow it. Move on.
That being said, I think it should go without saying that this scene is far more nuanced and complex than what the Shane haters and lovers would have you believe. And in order to understand the complexity, we're going to have to do a deep dive analysis here. Let's begin with why Shane came to Lori in the first place.
I'm gonna tell you a few things and you're gonna listen to me.
And now is not the time.
Come on, when's it ever the time?
Now he says he's going to talk and she's going to listen. Why would he say that?
I gotta tell you, I do not think you should be taking this out on him.
You don't tell me what to do, you lost that privilege.
Hey, Lori, could you just wait up a sec? I think we should talk. You know,
No,
we haven't had a chance. and I
No,
don't...
that's over too. You can tell that to the frogs.
Lori, look, I don't know how it appears to you.
How it
what you
appears to me. I'm sorry, is there a gray area here? Let me dispel it. You stay away from me. You stay away from my son. You don't look at him. You don't talk to him. From now on, my family is off limits to you.
Lori, I don't think that's fair.
Shane,
I don't think that I deserve
shut
that.
up. I don't think that... Don't. My husband is back. He is alive.
He's my best friend. Look how you think that I'm not happy about that.
How dare you? Why would you be? You are the one that told me that he died. You son of a bitch.
How can you treat me like this?
You're kidding, right? Because you told me my husband was dead.
Boy, I didn't lie to you. All right, I didn't. Okay, do you know what it was like there? Huh?
Lori here deserves some disdain. She assumed Shane lied when he really didn't. She assumed malintent when she should have just talked to Shane about Rick's apparent survival in the face of Shane's claim that he had died. We, as the audience, know that Shane wasn't lying about trying to save Rick. We literally see it in a flashback. Hell, Shane blocking that door pretty much saved Rick's life. Now, some Shane haters would argue that Shane lied to Lori because Rick was indeed still alive when he left the hospital. But ladies and gents, let's just put our thinking caps on for a minute. Is it really outlandish for Shane to assume that Rick died when he personally witnessed the military clearing the hospital, Code Red style, and when he also witnessed the bombing of fucking Atlanta? Truth be told, Rick should have died. Most people who aren't protagonists would have died on that hospital bed. Saying that Shane lied here is like saying it's a lie to presume someone is dead after a Tomahawk missile blows their house to Kingdom Come, while they're sleeping in said house. I mean, sure, we don't truly know if the person's dead, but come on folks, it's a fucking Tomahawk missile. It would be irrational to assume that someone can survive that. Shane didn't lie, he merely made an incredibly rational prediction which turned out to be wrong. Setting all of that aside, my point here is that Lori could have prevented this assault by simply talking to Shane when he wasn't an intoxicated mess. And you know what? He deserved this talk considering he saved her fucking life and Carl's life as well. Throughout their little post-apocalyptic adventure, Shane always treated her and Carl well. The man was good to them, and he was a close family friend for years, literally being viewed as Carl's surrogate uncle. Shane deserved to be treated better. Now, I'm well aware that this could be categorized as victim blaming, but there are indeed cases of victim blaming that are legitimate. But that doesn't then mean that I'm arguing that Lori deserved to be harmed, or that Shane should be fully absolved of his moral culpability here. That's not what I'm saying at all. Lori is indeed free to do as she wishes at the end of the day, and Shane should have respected her desires. I'm merely covering every aspect of this situation. With all of that said, I want to give you an example of proper victim blaming before I then give you an example of shitty and commonplace victim blaming. Imagine you go to a Black Lives Matter riot shortly after the police killing of an innocent black man. Now envision that you're wearing the following censored sign from Die Hard 3. If you get assaulted or shot, are you really going to tell me that it's wrong to state that said assault or shooting could have been reasonably prevented had you not wore a white supremacist sign to a Black Lives Matter event? I'll give you another one just for fun. Just imagine that your coworker is eating his or her lunch at work. Now envision yourself shitting in their food right in front of them. After this, your coworker punches you in the face. Would it be outlandish to claim that said assault was preventable by the victim? In both thought experiments, the people committing assault are ultimately responsible for their actions. In both examples, the victim doesn't truly deserve their illegal and unethical punishments. But we can also say that the victim is partially, even though marginally, responsible for making said acts far more likely to occur via their recklessness and/or inciting behavior. It's akin to pouring gasoline on a fire started by an arsonist. Now, a bad example of victim blaming would be to argue that Lori was to blame for her sexual assault because she was alone or because she wore no pants. These acts do not incite bad behavior because regardless of her clothing or her location, Shane at this point would have likely assaulted her anyway. And as I stated earlier, Shane is ultimately responsible for his actions, because there wouldn't be any fire to pour gasoline on to begin with had Shane been more responsible and ethical. He's the one who got drunk, he's the one who could not control his emotions, he's the one who was incapable of respecting the desires of the woman he claimed to love, and he's the one who ultimately assaulted Lori. Period. I only delve into this to make a simple point. Lori isn't fully to blame here. Hell, it isn't even a fair comparison, but she does share some of the blame, precisely because toxicity tends to beget toxicity in return. If you treat people like shit, you increase the odds of being harmed by said people. It's just common fucking sense. The way she treated Shane played a direct role in the decline of his mental state. She didn't just do something he disliked, she outright emotionally abused him. But Shane is ultimately the one who is most morally culpable here. And it's not even a remotely close competition, because emotional abuse of any kind doesn't merit sexual assault or any form of violence as a permissible retaliation. Period. That being said, this doesn't mean Shane was a terrible person prior to the outbreak. In fact, this assault is perhaps the first sign of his mental state truly declining. This sort of act wasn't the norm for him, hence why Lori felt comfortable being alone with him in that room in the first place, and it's also why she felt so comfortable speaking to him in a harsh manner. This sexual assault ultimately came down to a broken man desperately attempting to prove that Lori was still in love with him, which she wasn't. This realization, of course, angered Shane, but after this aborted assault, Shane also felt shame and embarrassment. So much so that he apologized and then attempted to atone by opting to leave the group altogether. That is until a certain someone told him not to leave. But more on that later. Point being, Shane wasn't a bad person at this point. He was a broken person. The distinction matters a great deal. If he really was a habitual rapist, and not some dumb, impulsive, depressed, drunk fuck, he wouldn't have stopped when he got scratched in the neck. In a weird way, this scene has done a lot to obfuscate people's judgment of Shane and Lori's characters. Alright, moving on. Remember when Lori told Rick that Shane was dangerous?
You killed the living to protect what's yours? Shane thinks I'm his. He thinks the baby's his. And he says you can't protect us. That you're gonna get us killed. He's dangerous, Rick, and he won't stop.
She gets a ton of hate for stating this, despite her being 100% correct. At that point in the story, Shane probably could have been saved, but it was also true to state that at said point in the story, he truly did view Carl and Lori to be his. And if this problem was left unaddressed, it would only be a matter of time before Shane attempted to get Rick out of the picture. And guess what, ladies and gents? She was unquestionably right.
There are no rules, man. We're lost.
No, man. I know exactly where I am.
You don't know shit anymore.
You can do it, man.
It's my call,
I
man.
don't think you can keep them safe. It ain't gonna be easy. But Lori and Carl, they'll get over you. They done it before. They're just gonna have to.
How can you blame her for coming to that conclusion? She clearly understood that Shane sacrificed Otis. She knew Shane would abandon a child to keep her safe, and she knew Shane was capable of acting recklessly and with violence. She isn't pitting Rick against Shane here. She's looking out for her fucking husband and bringing attention to an issue that needs to be addressed. Last but not least is the fact that some people like to say that Lori was irresponsible for getting pregnant in the zombie apocalypse. But fact of matter is, she could have gotten an abortion via abortion pills at any time, while also attempting other less than safe methods. I mean, it's not like people were hoarding these pills. Also, this argument ignores that Shane was the one who impregnated her. Sex is not consent to pregnancy, but that's not really a debate I want to have in this video. She initially opted against abortion, throwing up the pills, but only fully went through with having Judith because Rick influenced her to gestate the fetus.
We'll put it and Carl and everyone we care about into danger. That's not right.
Not even giving it a chance isn't right either.
Maybe this is why I didn't want to tell you.
I still...
Had Rick implored her to get an abortion, she likely would have looked for pills again and likely would have gone through with said abortion. She clearly wanted Rick's support and his approval, regardless of what direction said support and approval went in. Like a good wife, she wanted her husband to have a say in that important decision. Okay, so now we get to cover the aspects of Laurie's character that deserved the disdain of the fan base. Let's begin with the obvious elephant in the room, her treatment of Shane Walsh. This is actually something I covered in some detail in my video about Shane, so if you haven't watched that video, watch it next. That being said, Laurie felt immense guilt for having an affair with Shane. She felt she actually had cheated on her husband despite the fact that it was never an intentional betrayal. She also feels guilt for having a child with Shane. Because let's be real, everyone knows Judith is Shane's daughter. The series literally goes out of its way to tell us this.
I know Judith isn't mine. I love her. She's my daughter. But she isn't mine. I'm looking for my family.
Oh, is that what you're doing? Looking for your family, huh? Well, see, that's not entirely true. One could argue it's my family you're looking for, right? How is my baby girl, by the way? Get my eyes done.
She then takes this guilt out on Shane while also assuming the worst of him. She also tells him to leave and then to stay, knowing damn well that he loved her and that he should have just left the group for his own sanity. She asks for his help and then she tells him she ain't his responsibility anymore. She even denies him the chance to parent his own child, which is probably the only way he could have been saved, since it would have given him something to live for that wasn't Laurie or Carl. Even her final apology to Shane was an attempt to make herself feel less guilty, when it was crystal clear that she should have just given Shane a ton of space.
I gotta tell you, I do not think you should be taking this out on him.
You don't tell me what to do, you lost that privilege.
Lori, could you just wait up a sec? I think we should talk. You know, we haven't had a chance.
No, that's over too. You can tell that to the frogs.
Lori, look, I don't know how it appears to you.
How it appears to me? I'm sorry, is there a gray area here? Let me dispel it. You stay away from me. You stay away from my son. You don't look at him. You don't talk to him. From now on, my family is off limits to you.
Lori, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that I deserve
Shut
that. I don't think that...
Don't. My husband is back. He is alive.
He's my best friend. How you think that I'm not happy about that?
How dare you? Why would you be? You are the one that told me that he died. You son of a bitch.
I think it is. What made you decide?
Gotta back away. Just trying to be the good guy here, Laura, even if you don't see it. None of this was intended. I hope you know that. Don't matter as long as I said it.
You're just gonna disappear. You're not even gonna tell Rick.
You'd only try to stop me. Look, that's on you. You tell him what you want or tell him nothing at all. You're his wife.
And Carl, we dragged him into this.
I love Carl.
He thinks you hate
I'm
him.
trying to put some distance. I'm trying to make this easier. This ain't easy on any of us, least of all me. I'm the one who loses you.
Stay.
Did you mean it?
What?
You said stay. Did you mean it? If you didn't, you just say so. You do it now? I need to know.
I'm in it. Even abandoning a lost child. Really? My son and I are not your problem anymore, or your excuse. You're wrong. I'm sorry. Shane, I'm sorry. But even if it's yours, it's not gonna be yours. It's never gonna be yours. And there's nothing you can do to change that. And I never thanked you for that. Even though things got, confused between us. You were there for me. You were there for me. Thank you.
You don't need to thank me for that.
Of course I do. Of course I do. whatever happened between us, whatever the hell we thought it was, and not just you, but I'm sorry, Shane. Please believe me, I am so sorry.
Lori had a very direct and very large impact on Shane's mental breakdown, and she deserves every bit of hate for it. Now, she's not entirely responsible for the tragedy of Shane, but she is most definitely a large part of that incredibly intricate puzzle. Then there's Lori's criminally negligent parenting style that saw her often losing track of her son Carl. Her inability to keep track of Carl spawned numerous memes, precisely because she was so damn bad at keeping an eye on him. Losing track of Carl is what led to Carl shooting zombie Shane, the very thing she blamed Rick for. It's also what led to Dale's death, as Carl led the very walker that fucked up Dale back to the farm. Had she kept a good eye on Carl, Dale would have survived much longer. Randall would have been executed if Lori had kept an eye on the kid. Carl could have been hurt when he managed to sneak into Randall's shed. Are you starting to see a pattern here? This bitch really was bad at keeping an eye on her son in the middle of a fucking zombie apocalypse. In fact, let's go back to Carl shooting Shane. Let's talk about how she reacted to Rick's confession. Now, a lot of viewers often interpret this scene as Lori being mad at Rick for killing Shane. And that's partially true. Lori did have some feelings for Shane, as confirmed by Robert Kirkman. But Shane was also a long-time family friend. It makes sense that she'd feel a bit sick at the notion that Rick killed his best friend, especially since she probably feels some guilt for what happened to Shane.
I made a mess of things. And put you and Rick at odds. I don't even know whose baby this is.
But the part that seems to go over the heads of many fans is that Lori was mostly mad at Rick because he told her that Carl was the one who finished off zombie Shane. Now, clearly had she been better at watching her own kid, this never would have fucking happened. That being said, in her eyes, Rick allowed their son to experience something no kid should ever experience. And in her eyes, Rick is now just as dangerous as Shane. She literally doesn't recognize the man she fell in love with. Unfortunately for her, this is precisely when Rick needed her the most and she pulled away. At least Lori eventually came to understand this shortcoming, not long before she died.
For the record, I don't think you're a bad mother.
Well, life is a different story.
So, in a sense, you gotta somewhat respect her ability to recognize when she screwed the pooch. But it still doesn't make up for her colossal fuck-ups. Like the time Lori ruined Maggie's car. Or at least I think it was Maggie's car. All I know is that she acted recklessly and endangered herself and her fetus, which she planned on gestating, and in the process ruined a perfectly functional vehicle, which then led to Shane having to rescue her, thus risking his life as well. Then there was the time she kept her pregnancy a secret and told Glenn about it before she talked to Rick about it. Or how she took forever to confess to Rick that she and Shane had a complicated relationship when he was in a coma. Or how she straight up criticized Andrea for not fulfilling her traditionally female role, while also taking for granted just how lucky she was as a survivor.
The men can handle this on their own. They don't need your help.
I'm sorry, what would you have me do?
Oh, there's plenty of work to go around.
Are you serious?
Puts a burden on the rest of us. On me and Carol and Patricia and Maggie, cooking and cleaning and caring for Beth, and you don't care about anyone but yourself. You sit up on that RV working on your tan with a shotgun in your lap.
Lori was one hell of an unlikable character precisely because she wasn't made for the new world and precisely because she could often be very selfish. While she never intended to harm others, she certainly did end up harming them, and it is for that very reason that she deserves most of the hate directed towards her. But there are certainly places where the hate goes too far, where the loathing is unearned and where the character is mistreated by people who've openly betrayed their own intellects. Anyways, if you enjoy this sort of content, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to smash that notification icon as well, that way you may be notified when I publish a new video. Also remember that you may opine anytime if you feel so inclined, down in the comment section. I'm Captain Gold and hope to see you in my next Gold Standard video.